Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. Who is the awakening woman? She's a woman who's seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her conversations will introduce you to talented women who will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. They share their stories and explain how they're in service to the world. So let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's Her Conversations is personal friend and Kundalini yoga teacher Victoria Amore. During our conversation, we talk about the shift in consciousness we have witnessed during the last 4 months, spiritual warriorship, are we doing enough to help humanity, the role of the media in programming and deceiving us, and the core issue of child trafficking and abuse, and the responsibility that we all have to make sure this can never happen again. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
Oh, you're just going in deep. For me, it is really when actually it's just in the simplicity, when I have the time to just be present with who I'm with or whatever I'm doing, and just being in that moment. And I feel that's when my channels are clear. I can think straight, I can express myself. And yeah, so right now that's been actually being in nature. I've been down to the sea quite a lot and being with my daughter. And that is it. That is where I get those sort of downloads, and that vibration is so high. And I feel amazing, and I feel myself. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. It changes, but yeah.
Perfect. So can you just tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, Victoria, like your background and how you got into doing the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up on a council estate, thinking I was so privileged because I had my mum and dad together with my sisters. I was always a little bit of an outcast wherever I was. Flip forward to my teens, I got caught up in what was, for my area, the sort of go-getters, the ones who were getting out of the council estate and the ones who were doing well in life, which meant I was with people a lot older than me. So I got into the whole, you're cool, you go to the London clubs and you drink a lot and whatever. So I feel like that stage of me was numbed. And then I had an experience where I was like, this is all getting too much. Like, I'd lost myself, and I moved to Mallorca. So I literally ran away because I was like, I've got to get away. So I literally overnight, I left my job, and I was a hairstylist. I left my job and I just went to nothing. I worked in a bar and I lived by the ocean. And I think that was my biggest wake up. And after that, my next one was when I had my daughter. And really that was it. After that, I was just waking up, but it was in the way of a remembering of who I was when I was a kid. That kind of awkward one who always says the wrong things, who, when I was a kid, I always used to have dreams and then they would come true and my mum couldn't explain it. So I went into that and I just went deeper and deeper and nothing stopped me. And I'd done it on every level. So I went raw foodist. I stopped listening to all the music I was listening to, stopped drinking alcohol. I haven't drunk alcohol now for 8 years completely sober. So I literally just went deep and I started practicing many different forms of yoga. But when I done Kundalini, that was the one that just literally blew me out. Like, I was having like full body like orgasms and I was like sweating out toxins, and I just kept doing these things. And then for the first time in so long, I just felt like I loved myself. And I think that was what was like, oh my gosh, like, here I am. All the masks had come off. And then I just kept going deeper and deeper. So that's been a 10-year journey. And now I teach it. And it's starting to actually even evolve now, because I was pretty textbook teaching. That's what you get to teach when you practice that lineage of Kundalini. now it's moving, but I think that's because I'm evolving even more so. But for a good solid 10 years, I practiced, you know, daily, and just finding all these assets of myself and waking up to a whole new reality that I never thought was possible before. Yeah.
Okay. And because we met in last year in Mallorca, wasn't it? Almost a year ago, or maybe like, I can't remember the
more
date.
than that, yeah.
Something like just over like a year and a bit.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, the festival. And you know what you're saying about like your practice evolving. I've kind of evolved away from the Kundalini practice as well, just for, you know, a myriad of reasons that are not really what we need to go into today, but also because but there's a discipline, and there's one thing, you know, things that I will take for it is like, I was able to meditate before, and I could do meditations before, but I was never able to do like deep hour meditations, whereas now I do a deep hour meditation every morning, now more so than ever. My God, you need it, you know. And if I don't have at least 1 hour of the day where I'm just in kind of deep stillness and contemplation and connection, it's going to be like a rough, rocky day for me as well. You know what I mean? I might be able to kind of like grab onto the threads of like the back end of yesterday's practice, if that makes sense. But I just need to like reconnect and journal and pray. And for me, it's kind of evolved in that I take the discipline away from that. There are certain things, elements that I use, but also I'm remembering a connection with God that I kind of left as a child, because it was kind of part of what I did, and I needed to like re-establish that on my own terms. And the reason I'm mentioning God like a lot and having that connection, and when I say that, I'm not talking about God as in the religious kind of way, even though looking at the Bible, there is a lot of truth in the Bible. We know the Bible is a book, and religion is a separate thing to what the Bible is, and the Bible's been, you know, bastardized and pulled apart and everything like that. Is the times that we are in. It's like whether you've come from solely what you would call spiritual lineage or practice, or from a religious practice where you followed the Bible, there has always been a time that we've been waiting for, and I really believe that we're in that time now, this time of awakening, this time of ascension, where we come out of the dark times and we go into the light times. And what I am, you know, and it's, you know, it is literally biblical, you know. There's a meme that goes around where it's like, I don't know if you've seen it, where there's someone going, I'm looking out the window to see which part of Revelations is going on today, because there's so much. There's like locust fires and locust swarms and fires and plagues, if you look at where we are in terms of the health issue that's going around the world at the moment, but then also things like the mark of the beast. And if you kind of tie that into other things that are coming out, it is really prophetic in a way. And what I've noticed, and I've been so surprised at, are people who I've practiced with for a long time, who've come from all different modalities and different aspects, because I've kind of like magpied my way around things all over the years, is how few people are stepping up. They seem to be running away from everything that we've been waiting for. And this is the time, I believe, that we were all practicing for. And yet no one, or very few, are using their voices. What do you think?
Yeah. I feel this. Just step back one sec about this, about the discipline. So for me, it's really important that when we're on this path, that we do have a discipline. And once you get further along the journey, you can let that go. But it gets really confusing with what's ego, what's mind, what's truth, what's a channel. Like, unless you have that really strict discipline to start with, this gets so confusing. And you don't know who your God is. Is that your mind? Is that your ego? Is that your job? Is that your paycheck? What's dictating your movement? So when you have a real, and you know, if anyone who's done the 12-step, you know, that's so dogmatic and so strict, and it has to be, because you're an addict. But really we're all in that sort of same place at the moment. We're addicted to our phones. We've got so much information that we need to like pull it apart and have that time. And then going on to this where you're being silenced, who's silencing you? And is it your ego not wanting to say something because, you know, you don't know if it's 100% right, and you don't know if someone's going to come back and argue with you, and you can't argue that back. You're not strong enough in your truth to argue that back. Or is it you're being paid to be a certain person, which we all know a lot of the celebrities, and celebrity culture has been out of my life for so long now. And, you know, I mentioned before with my daughter's 12 and has never idolized a celebrity because I've made sure of it. Because they're being paid to be a person, a persona, which has been fabricated. And if that new narrative that is really coming through from all of these awakened beings is not that puppet sort of person that they're pretending to be, they can't say it because that's, you know, they're not allowed to. They're being controlled by a paycheck, by, you know, whatever. So I feel like that's there. We can see that happening. You know, if you look at some people's pages, it's like they haven't actually got a free thought. Like, you know, this is why I'm really even going down to myself as a yoga teacher. Like, you know, we got to stop getting other people to do our social media because it's not us. And, you know, I've sort of had that idea before of like, oh, should I, you know, sort of make it look more professional? It's like, I'm just myself, you know, I'm messy, I'm random, I'm, you know, something comes in and it changes the direction. Like, how can I plan for the next 6 months what I'm putting on my social media? All of these things, we're being sort of programmed in every possible way. So where's that space for free thought and to change our direction? So again, going back to these people who've been silenced, the people who I'm looking at is, and there's some who have been amazing, like we spoke about Kundalini, Guru Jagat has been amazing. She's opened up her platform for so many people to give alternative narratives. I really commend that. But there's some people who I'm like, so what are your thoughts on it? Because you're posting every day and I haven't seen one thing that just, you know, even to share a bit of confusion, like I'm confused right now, I don't understand this, these rules don't make sense, or this doesn't seem right. You know, we all thought we were going to be seeing dead bodies coming out the roads. We were, you know, I was scared, like how bad is this virus? And that hasn't happened. So where is this conversation from, like you say, these sort of thought leaders, these famous people who are supposed to be people we look up to? This too makes me ask a lot of questions.
I say with that, check, like with anything that's kind of turned up, is to look at where the money is. You know what I mean? Look at where the money's going, who's getting paid, where they're getting paid from, because, you know, without naming names, but be like saying it in a way that I hope that people will get it, is if you are affiliated with a larger organization. So for instance, if you are an author of a particular publishing house that has got, then it's unlikely that you can say certain things. The reason, and I'll say that because I had an experience of that where I spoke to someone and they were like 100% aware of everything that was going on. However, the conversation that we were able to have, I just had all through the conversation, I was just aware that they were cautious about what they wanted to do because they didn't want to jeopardize the contract. Not that it was, yeah. So, you know, it's people know the truth and yet they don't say. And it's unfortunate because people are looking towards those people who have spent the past 10-15 years being a lighthouse in a world that was dark, but not as, you know, that was dark or confusing, or people wanted to awaken or needed some sort of spiritual leader. And then the time that they're needed the most, they're just being so bland, so blasé, so love and light, and it's you're not helping anybody.
Yeah, Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially when things start, I mean, there's so much now, so many people have woken up to, in the past 3-4 months, where are we now? Like, I don't even know what day, you know what I mean? It's July, so 7, like 4 months. So many people have like had the time, if they've chosen to start to just look around and go, hang on a minute, something doesn't feel right, something doesn't sound right, I'm going to start digging around. And the thing to be aware of is there is a lot of information out there. There is a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of truth, and a lot of the time the truth is the part that sounds the most preposterous. That's where the truth is, because we don't even appreciate how cloistered and how dampened down and how lied to we've been. I can't think of any aspect of our life that hasn't been created on the back of a fiction, even our own selves. If you look into that.
But this is very hard to actually process. And so, but in my teachings, the last however many years, we say Satnam, like truth is my identity, that's who I truly am. And I talk about this so much, about coming back to your truth, coming back. And to really do that, like I said before, you've got to take off a lot of masks and really sit with something. And it gets really uncomfortable, because we have to really, we might look around and we as yogis, we talk about not being attached to things, and there is a good reason, and this time has shown that the people who are attached, they claw on and they hold on, and again, this is uncomfortable, because what happens if you're holding on to something, you're really tense, and there's no flow of energy, and there's a new direction and new possibilities, even new manifestations aren't able to happen because you're holding on. So we really need to be able to let go and soften up, come into our heart, into our truth, and we have to let certain things fall away in order for new things to just freely come up, and trust the process of an awakening. When you're really guided, which a lot of us need a teacher, when you're guided by a teacher, the things come up in beautiful waves, actually. And sometimes it might feel like you've just been hit by, like, whoa, but actually if you slow that all down, it comes up in a very gentle wave, and you can actually process things bit by bit and be like, okay, right. So even simple things, people are now looking at the dynamic of their family and realize, like, they've been spending so much time away from their families, and now they got to spend time with their children and appreciate the joy that is living underneath their roof, which they're not experiencing. They can maybe reassess and be like, actually, we don't need this, this, and this. Because if we didn't buy that, I wouldn't have to work so much. I could do a day or 2 days less a week and spend more time with my children and be part of, what my responsibility in the world is, this small household. And so it can really start with small things like that. And if we don't slow it down, like we were saying, have a discipline, have a spiritual practice, have a teacher or a group of friends who are like-minded to sort of see us through, all of a sudden it becomes really scary and overwhelming. So we need to really slow that down and soften that up, to just keep coming back to the heart and keep coming back to the truth. And otherwise we're not going to be able to make a difference. Or even live any of these things, like you were saying, like, it's true, what's happening, but you can't even talk about it, let alone take an action towards it. So I feel like going back to what can we actually do, that's what we have to do first of all, is slow it down and be like, what is important. And it normally comes back to really, really simple things. Actually.
I mean, I've lived in practically the same little bucket of clothes for the past, like, when we're still alive. I mean, I've traveled, so I know that you don't really need that much, and you don't die because you don't have your whole wardrobe with you. But one of the things that I think is confusing for a lot of people is, what you're talking about, getting into the heart and stripping away the masks and everything like that, is knowing who you are and having connection with that. And that's, if you do a spiritual practice, then that's what it's about, is finding about what your truth is. On a collective level, most people's truth or most people's persona is then built on the reflection of their actions in the world or their opinions in the world, which will be like, okay, I work here and I make this amount of money and this is my job title, here's my business card, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So, you know, so then when you have quarantine and then you're at home and you're not having that reflection of all these people telling you who you are, that I can see why it's causing a lot of like stress and anxiety with people as well. Also talking about like-minded people, it's surprising how you realize the people that you think you can be within your family group or friends group as well, now that you actually start to peel back and look at what's going on. And when you've had all those inklings, you realize maybe the people that you've spent in your peer group for a long time, actually you're not like-minded when it gets down to when you really start to strip away. It's like it was all right on a surface level, and then when you strip a bit away and then you go, actually I think this, and then you've got everyone going, well, that's not the case. Especially on, you know, everyone's an expert now, everyone's a virologist at the moment on Facebook, because it's finding out, you're finding out all of this disinformation, and it's trying to work out what it is. And I've been researching heavily, partly because of the projects that I do as well. And what I've started to realize is, yeah, you can get overwhelmed because they're all different things and there are conflicting things. I get my information from like a range of different people. So it will be people who are very specific and logical. So they're coming from like ex-CIA, FBI, ex-military. So they present the information in a very clear way. Mm-hmm. And then you've got completely on the other edge of people who are more spiritual, more esoteric, who are feeling into the energy of what's true and what's not. And then there are people in the middle. And there is something that if you kind of go and like swim and pick and feel from the way that the information's being presented to you, and then also have a practice where you know who you are, then it's like a muscle test. After a while, you know what truth feels like, and you know what a lie looks like as well. So that when you do see something presented to you from the mainstream media, you can be like, that's bullshit. You can absolutely know without even without researching, you can look at it because you've got the background of all the information that is just literally a hair's breadth away, I feel, from actually coming and flooding everyone. So you can look at something and just go, that's not true. You can just like literally know. It's like, that is absolutely not true. And then also it doesn't matter if anyone agrees with you or not, because it doesn't have to be true for them. Truth is the truth. Whether you believe it or not, it's going to be true. It's like, if you believe it, then you let it in and then you allow it to be. If you're fighting it, then you're going to live in a reality. You're going to remain in this reality that's still built on lies. But even then, the lies themselves are being exposed, because as we ascend, all of the shadows come up, and that's why we're hearing more and more about it. But in terms of, we have this external collective shadow rising, and then we're also having our personal shadow rising as well. And that's where I think people who don't know what all this emotion and anxiety and fear is about, if they don't have a name for it, that's when they're going to really struggle.
Yeah. And like I said, it comes up different for everyone. And it depends what path you've taken and, you know, how deep you are into this, whatever it is, this kind of web of whatever. So yeah, it comes up differently. I feel a lot of compassion actually though, because there's some people who are just genuinely just doing their best, and they've sort of followed the rules because they think that's the right thing to do, and they feel awful for it, and they haven't made those connections yet. So I do have a lot of compassion, and what happens is when there's something that clicks and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, like what, you know, happened with my sister. She was like full on, you know, cheering Boris, clapping on a Thursday night, you know, and because she's got children and she's trying to pretend, like, totally get it. And then all of a sudden she's like, this isn't right. You know, my children are getting miserable now. And then other people will say you're selfish, but we're walking out on the street and we're realizing this isn't selfish. This is just living our life. We're healthy people. And And so that's, in some way, this is waking people up in like a gentle stir, because then she's questioned that, and now she's questioning everything. You know, she's calling me every day because now she realizes so many other things weren't right. So in some way, it's actually a real blessing that this extreme has been come upon us to wake people up. And I feel like that's not really what the agenda was, but it's definitely what's happening. So I'm always trying to, I'm consciously trying to keep a really positive mindset, really in my compassionate heart space, because otherwise it really takes over me personally. You know, I find I can't sleep, or I was sort of getting quite overwhelmed, and I felt in that space of non-action. I'm not doing anything. I'm just stuck in this space, and I feel like I'm the only one, and it's just not true. We're connected by so many mass awakened people now, and so just to connect with them in any way we can. I've actually even gone back to listening to Abraham Hicks, you know, like, and talking about vibration all the time, and about how to stay on a high vibration and keep really positive. And also old like The Secret and The Magic, you know, they're super basic, but I feel like the balance is needed, because otherwise we feel like we're in this like real sinister world, and it's not. It's such a very small people who we've handed over the power to, but we are the masses, and we are awakening in the masses. And for me right now, it's like every day, like staying in that vibration of openness, of love, of awakening, connecting and helping as many people as we can. You know, like the work you're doing, I'm trying to right now feel like, I think I'm going to do a course in September, back to basics sort of thing, for all of these newly awakened people, because I'm like, I feel like some of it goes over their heads. It's like, how can I truly make a difference right now? And I do feel like it's going back a few steps for me, somewhere where I feel super comfortable and know those so well, and just taking those people up on the journey, because we need that like support group right now. So
no, it's definitely going to be needed, because as people wake up, and then, you know, if you think, when you find out a truth about something that you've been hoodwinked about for a while, it's like you say with your sister, first it's like, oh my God, and then you have to kind of go through all of that feeling within yourself of like, how could I have been a fool, you know, feeling guilty, feeling embarrassed. And I think a lot of the time why people are holding on to things for so much is because they don't want to be wrong. And it's like this, and the thing is, this is not about being right or wrong now. This is not a reflection on you. You're not a stupid person. The game that was played, and the web that was spun, and the matrix that was spun around you was done so expertly on every single level that there was no way you were going to escape it. There was no way that you weren't going to bump into some aspect of it that was gonna convince you that you know, the sky was down and the ground was up, basically, because it was set there to confuse you. Because whether we want to believe it or not, the web that has been spun around us has been spun around by, we can call it people, but the thing is, when we say people, we always think about souls like us, you know. It's like, we think like, oh, how could a person do this? It's like, we are in a situation where we have acquiesced our power to people, quote unquote, who have gone past the point of they've lost their empathy, they've lost their love, because either they were born into a situation where it was a role that they were going to play, or they made a pact in order to play the role. You know, we might think that our favorite person is like, no, it couldn't possibly be them. But what we're going to find out more and more is pretty much anybody, and the higher they have been on the tree, the more compromised they have been, and the more they have benefited from fooling us. That has been their role, to entertain and divert us and keep us in a low vibrational path. And as people start to awaken and realize that, oh my God, you know, you'll find that pretty much your entire paradigm of reality is going to come crumbling down. And being in that space of not knowing who to trust or what to think or what to believe is really frightening. But then also it's super expansive. And if you can just remember that when you're in that super expansive state, that you feel vulnerable, but you can actually then start to rebuild from that. No, I was saying, going back to the Bible as well, there's like one, I think it might be one of the commandments where it said you should not put any false god before me, you know. And it's about, one, remembering that God isn't this external guy that sits on a cloud in the sky. God is you. Yeah. So basically that time where we've, like, all of this time where we've forgotten that we are in ourselves gods, and that God energy or universe or whatever you want to call it, that source connection, that higher self is in you. And just because you've been following your favorite singer, actor, politician, sports person, and you've given them all the information and given them all of the power to make your decisions for you because so-and-so said something and you decided to go that way, when you disconnect from them and reconnect with yourself, it will feel better. You won't feel as lost, and we'll create a society that I can't imagine. I'm trying to work it out, you know, where we don't have to look to these people that are X amount of million blue checked verified people. It's like anything that is verified right now, I would say to anybody, unfollow. It's not helping you. It's not set up to tell you anything that's remotely near the truth.
Yeah, and also I feel like that that force, like we say, people, or I'm not sure what to call it, but this kind of force of this collective that's, I feel like they're always trying to create a duality. So whether it be like the rich and the poor, the black and the white, whatever it is, they're always trying to create that duality. And when we're in the duality, we are literally split. We're in a schizophrenic sense. Our mind is split. And we need to side, even like the ridiculous, you know, even the politicians, it's like, do you like this one or this one? It's always like, it's always in that duality. And I feel like to really come into your truth, like what you're saying, God is in us. We are connected to everything and everyone on this planet. So when we come into that sense of connectedness, that kind of unity consciousness, this is straight away raising us, and we need to connect with others to remind us of that. And when we're separated in our own houses with these screens, that is going back to that duality. So for me, it's like super simple right now. You know, it's like, I need people, I need like-minded beings, I need connectedness, I need to be, you know, supported and support others, because that is that new way of being, where it's not like you're in your house with your bills and your struggles. You know, it's just so hard. Like, how can we live like that? You know, I'm a single mother and I'm exhausted. Like, it's made me realize this is exhausting. I can't keep doing it. I'm trying to create something that is just like impossible to do. You can't live in London on one wage and have a house and have, you know, I'm exhausted from it. And I realize now that was something that I was doing. This is one of my realizations, that I was still trying to like prove that I can do it. And now I'm like, help me. Anyone who can help me. Like, I'll do anything for anyone. But I need to receive as well. And that was sort of one of my things, of really truly allowing that flow of connectedness, of give and take. And I feel like that's my vision for this new way of being. And I do wonder, you know, with this cashless society, which I'm so not up for at all, but I do wonder if it would start pushing us into energy exchanges again. You know, like back in the day, the old pirates, you know, bag of gold for this, or, you know, you cut my lawn and I'll, don't know, make you dinner. I do wonder if that might again push us, because we are awake, we are human, we are not robots, and we find a way. We're so creative in finding ways. So I feel like my sort of vision is this real co-create, unity, you know, like big family vibes. That's sort of my vision, which I'm trying to sort of manifest more and more.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
If it's like somewhere that's like warm majority of the time, that's I still do need Wi-Fi, so please don't beat me up. But you know what I mean, somewhere that I can grow vegetables, and like within like an hour or two of an airport. I don't know where that's going, because I still want to see the world, so I don't want to be completely off grid. But in terms of like the way that things can be, there are so many, there are measures in place for the distribution of the redistribution of the resources of the world to be leveled out and balanced. And that's another aspect that I've been looking into as well. I'm not the world's greatest expert on it, but for anyone, if you look into Nazara Jazara and really understand what that means, because our monetary system or anything has been based on an illegal setup, basically. What that would do, if that were to come in place, would be to remove any illegal debt. And illegal debt are income tax paid on your wages, mortgages, credit card bills, that kind of thing. That would all be gone. That would also then redistribute, take the wealth and actually make it available to everyone. So, I mean, we have no concept. And even when I start looking into it and trying to like conceive of what this amount of money means, it just doesn't compute. The brain starts frying a little bit. But there are untold trillions that have been kind of siphoned off and kind of just sits in the pockets of like very few people. You could probably count them on the fingers of one hand. That if that was then released back into everybody's, imagine if like, what would you do if you had all of your bills, all of your needs were met? You know what I mean? You didn't need any money. You didn't have to worry about a bill. You didn't have to go and work just for the money. You wouldn't have energy. Like, also there are things like the technology that has been suppressed from us as well, simply because it benefits us. It benefits the industries for us to use oil and petrol and all of those kind of things. But do you not think, like, how long have we had cars and that petrol engine, that there are not other means of propelling us, in our little cars already? And these are, things that I've looked at are reasons why there's been so much suppression around whether or not we have alien technologies here. Because you've got to think, if we do, because if we think that we're just sitting on this pebble miles away from anyone and we're the only ones, then that's foolish. You need to readdress that one anyway. But if you think, if vehicles or objects, what you want to call it, have come from galaxies far away and they've got here and they're massive and they're bigger than our average cars, they're not like going into the Esso and like filling up the tank to get there. So they've propelled themselves from one place to another without tons and tons of fuel. So within those vehicles would be the breakdown of how to get from A to B on something other than fuel. So as soon as that starts to come to the fore, then we'll start to find out the technologies and the fact that we could have had free energy years back. People have been killed for even getting close to that or disclosing that. There's so much in the way of, we don't need to be ill. Yeah, the food's poison, but the body's always healing itself. But then there are cures for pretty much everything already that are suppressed as well. I mean, we can see even with, the fuss that was made out about talking about light in the body or disinfectant in the body. This is not new stuff. This is not new stuff. You can anybody can go on Google and find out that the cure for many of these things, a treatment, this laser light treatment disinfectant, has been out there for decades and has been used. But it's been suppressed because, it doesn't create billions and trillions of dollars for people. And it keeps people sick and dependent.
Even with the health stance, I feel like this is this really needs to be addressed, because if people are scared of getting ill, surely the solution would be for us all to get in our optimum state of health. And when natural remedies are now a conspiracy theory, this is really, this is really upsetting, because even I was with my auntie at the weekend and she was saying about her aches and pains or whatever. And I said, look, if you just take some bicarbonate of soda with lemon juice every single morning, this will alkalize your body and reduce the inflammation. And she sort of laughed at me like, it's not enough. It needs to be some glamorous, expensive pill, because she's been trained of that. She's older and she just doesn't think that there could be such a simple thing to, and I had a student who was, really scared, and you're drinking wine every night, which we know lowers the vibration and numbs you out, which I understand it. I really do understand it. I'm not judging. But this is another thing that really needs to be spoke about. I mean, when did the government tell us about, look, everyone, make sure you're hydrated? This is things that are free, by the way. Hydrated, good sleep, turn your Wi-Fi off at night, don't use your screens before bed, and, have a good night's sleep and stay hydrated. The most simple thing, exercise, do some breathing exercises.
Get some sun on your skin every day.
Get some sun, Just a very, very basic, simple way of like preparing the human body for the next day hasn't been addressed. And I'm like, what? and this for me, why I just can't, I just don't resonate with what's being said at all. And then I get called weird. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre. See, I keep coming back to the simple, because I feel like if you talk about this alien technology, it's just too much. They just don't get it.
I know, and unfortunately, the reason why it sounds so fantastic is it's been placed into like films and books, and so it sounds like science fiction, and it sounds wacky, and it sounds like it couldn't possibly happen. But imagine if you had your mobile phone and you went back to even just like 1995 with the iPhone 10. People would think you were weird. That's only going back like 25 years. That's right, So and for some reason we're just thinking, well, that couldn't possibly happen. It's like it's just what we don't know. And if you want to have even like a modicum of an inkling of what's possible, then watch your movies, but watch them with a layer of like, what's it trying to tell me? It's going to entertain you and put it in your mind and get you to think that, oh, that's a great story. Wouldn't that be good? So none of these things just drop in people's head as fiction. If you start to research, there's so much information out there now as well. There's like really cool movies that have been put together for people to actually have a look and understand what is right in front of us, or start asking questions about things that don't make sense, things that don't logically make sense. Because if you're not asking the questions, then you're succumbing to being comfortable in the space that you are, being comfortable in groupthink is a dangerous thing, because you just want to kind of stay with, well, what does so-and-so, what do you, like, oh, I've heard this thing, what do you think? Oh, you think that? Yeah, I think that too. It's like that. Don't do that to yourself. Sometimes that you need to be the person that goes, it doesn't really make sense to me for that to be true. And for the people who fear any kind of implication, like, what do you think is the worst thing that's going to happen? What is the worst thing that's going to happen if you speak out? Look at the doctors that have come forward to say, hang on a minute, I don't think something's not adding up here. Look at the nurses that have kind of gone into their phones and like sent a quiet message to people to go, the numbers are not adding up. This is not what's happening. And even now, whereas, a few weeks back, people go like, yeah, but I know someone who's got the corona. Like, well, it's not just about them having it. It's like, have they, people die all the time. This is not to take away from the numbers, but are the numbers any more higher than the normal death rate of human beings? People die and people are born every single day. This is like the circle of life. It's going to happen. But if you start attributing things or kind of squishing the numbers or changing the paradigm in order to get your graphs to look better, like the majority of people who are like waking up in the morning and looking at the graph on their newspaper, when was the last time you looked at a bloody graph? Probably when you did your GCSEs, and now suddenly you're allowing your entire life to be led by numbers. But then already now mainstream media are coming out going, oh, we think we need to look at the numbers again because they might not have, they're backtracking. But they can't just come out and go, we fucked up and we lied. It's like, oh, maybe, you know, just kind of tiptoeing out the room, like gently on the back foot. But like people who've been aware of it and been trying to push some different like narratives or information or possibilities in front of people. If you're still caught up in the fear, then anything other than that, like if you're not wearing a mask, then you're killing yourself. I got told by a scientist person that, you know, like you've got to think of other people, and like I am thinking of other people. I'm fine.
Massively. And the next generation. We are.
we don't know what the, you know, you might think, oh, we'll just wear this mask. It's like, if this was a pandemic, like you said, people would be dropping it like flies. You would have, obviously we can't go into, and we wouldn't have been able to go to any funerals, but I would say that probably at least 40 to 50% of people that you know would have been dead. And I don't know anybody. I know of one person removed who, in America, whose uncle was diagnosed, his death was written on the certificate as COVID, and it wasn't. He had a renal problem, and they wrote it off as that. And she's a nurse, so it's not even someone just kind of waving flags and going crazy. She's a nurse. We have to start looking at things like that are keeping us scared. And then, you know, after that, we had the George Floyd event as well. That then when it seemed like the COVID narrative was kind of getting a little bit quiet and like the sun was coming out and people just wanted to, you know, it's like, okay, let's create another, you know, the truth will come out about that. But again, I know what I looked at when I looked at that and I saw it. I'm like not 100% of, there's something that's not adding up, and I couldn't at that point. It was only something I could say to one person, like, I don't know about this. And then the more I went looking for the truth to see that this was true, the more it stacked up against the fact that this couldn't possibly be true. And then suddenly everyone came out of quarantine and they were on the streets. And then a month later, have we had a spike in all of those thousands of people?
No, we haven't.
So, you know, it's like...
And I was there, by the way, you know, I went into London on the protests and there were thousands. Actually, even before that, a good friend of mine went to the first mass gathering, which I think was still in, I think it was in March or April. And there were thousands of people there in Hyde Park in London. And the media said there were dozens of people.
Right.
And he was there. You know, and so again with the Black Lives Matter, I went from curiosity and more curiosity and to support the healing which needs to happen. But again, it wasn't. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and the media didn't say that. And now they're not saying, well, there were thousands of people and we didn't experience a strike. You know, they're not saying that as a spike, sorry. So that this is in itself, we're seeing that the media is not telling you everything that's happening, because how can we all start wearing masks now when when we were in the streets protesting and we were fine?
So that's the thing. It's like, this is like the thin end of a very dark wedge, that if we don't, I think this is why I'm feeling more and more drawn to, okay, you know, I know you've got to kind of gently awake people, you can't force things on them, but just to keep dropping the crumbs and asking like a critical question, because, you know, critical thinking is not something that you get taught to do. If anything, it gets drilled out of you, and then you get judged if you question the way everything else is going. But it's always that one kid, you know, the emperor's got no clothes, you're like, he's naked, and everyone's like, oh yeah, you know. But it's just to see that we're wearing these masks so that we protect ourselves from a second wave that is potentially coming in. So there's confusion around that. There's nothing is adding up. And then also what's coming out a little bit more now, and I think this has been another kind of bulk awakening of people, is really understanding what the real issue is behind the scenes. What's been hidden from us is the way that the most innocent of our population, the children, have been treated. Mm-hmm. And that's what is really just burgeoning to come out. Because if ever, you know, before I'm like, okay, this is madness, and just feeling a little bit feeling the need to do and say something, but now it's got past the point of like, okay, you don't do that to the children, you don't, you know. But this is the way, this is what we need to understand, is this is how the people in power are compromised, and also it's like I say, it's people, it's hard to say they're people because I don't understand their practices and the reasoning behind it, but to think it's a worldwide trade, bigger than drugs trade. Any kind of drug is the trafficking and the abuse of children, and that's not what people are hearing at the moment, or some of them are hearing and not quite getting it, and it's starting to come up a little bit. But I think once everyone really gets the picture, then I think that is probably the thing that's going to wake people up, because, you know, the other two things haven't done it. There's been, you know, the health issue happened, and it didn't really work. No, and then you had the race riots, and then
that's created more divide. I found
it created more divide, and then and you know, and also around that as well, the amount of Black women that have just I was surprised. I'm like, come on, like, let's have a look at what's happening. We're being played over a wound that has not healed. So it's for us to like stop being forced into, it's like having that older brother that just knows exactly the point to kick you and you'll fall down crying. They know exactly the wound to get, so they can get Black people in their feelings, and they're not thinking straight, not looking at the fact that, start to again look at the money, look behind, what is this organization, who's funding it, what, don't worry about, you know, your favorite celebs and what they're telling you it's about, or hashtags or posters, or it's more than that, and it's not what you think it is. Don't just go along with something blindly when you don't know what you're doing. If you think you're doing something right just by doing your little bit, it's like the time for us to kind of rise up and wake up and find our strength now, and get motivated in whatever way, shape or form it is, or whatever moves you. But it's, you know, that part for me is all of it really. The fact that they have managed to create this Matrix Truman Show reality for everybody, but people are waking up now. We don't yet know how or what to do about it, but it's a long time coming. It's a lifetime coming.
I feel like with the children stuff, that's for me, like, we're not educated on numbers. Like, most people don't know the population of the country they live in. So most people don't know the number of deaths that is normal for a daily thing, and most people do not know the amount of numbers of the children that go missing. So if we put those numbers against the COVID deaths, that in itself is going to be a massive wake-up call. And I feel like I had this information. This is probably one of the things I'm most passionate about, because I've kept the innocence in my daughter. I had a conversation yesterday. When was the first time that you felt sexually exposed, or sort of, you know, just like that sexual energy was pointed towards you? You felt sort of embarrassed by it as a child. And mine was like 8 or 9. And So that's been there in our generation by normal people, like just normal.
Yeah.
So the people who have been taken into care homes and adopted and things like that, I think it's something like 90% of them have been abused sexually in those spaces. So our care system isn't working. That's fact by the numbers. So if you want to start looking at this without any sort of the underground satanic things that are going on, just the normal stuff that's out there in the world, this should be enough to shock people. Yeah. To want them for something to change. And when we go into, you know, me protecting the innocence of my daughter, I haven't let her wear clothes that I think are inappropriate. She's been so kept as a child. She's turning 13 this year, and I feel like so proud that I can say she's never been violated or anything. She's really got her innocence still, to the point where, she's so, it feels like she's so young for her age, but she's not. She's age appropriate, but compared to a lot of people. And her dad used to be like, no, you're still treating her like a baby. And I'd be like, well, she is a baby. Like 6 years old, she is a baby. She's only been on this planet for 6 years. And now he's completely changed his tone with me. Like, he is so grateful because he's watching his friends' daughters of the same age hypersexualized. Like, you can't start toning it down when they hit puberty. They've already they've been groomed from that from they were 4, 5, 6 years old. You can't just turn it off. So I actively made age appropriate things from such a young age that now she's coming into that, she's started to now bloom, and she's sort of now a bit more interested in clothes. So she's got a sewing machine now. She can start making her own clothes, and I'm allowing her to flourish from that point of innocence, and I've protected that. And how many parents can say that? Not many. And so now I feel like perhaps this is, where my life's work is going to start moving towards, because I done that intuitively with being a single mum with one child. And so maybe it's time for me to actually help other people do it, so there's more children who are going against that, the media flow of hypersexual, some of the music that they're listening to. I actually don't know it because I just don't know it. It's not my reality, and it's not my daughter's reality. But just because of this stuff's being flagged up, so some of the sort of images have been coming up, and I'm like, okay, so they don't actually understand their bodies yet. They're not even hitting puberty, and yet they understand what some really vile sex acts are. They already know what those are. And I think I sound old-fashioned to some people. I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually allowing us to develop as human beings. That means our consciousness as well. Our consciousness has to develop at a certain stage. We can't be force-fed information, which is like a trauma to the brain, because we're not ready to receive it. And so we have these sort of strange dynamics going on with the children. And like I say, this is normal. This is not happen. This is not what the other real dark, sinister things are. So I feel like to do with adults, depending on what you're ready to do, maybe just start with your own family, ban songs. I won't let my daughter listen to any songs that's talking about having sex with a woman. I'm like, no, you're not ready to hear that stuff yet. And I spoke to one really good friend of mine, and she said, it's hard because all the other parents at the school are letting their children, and I don't want to be the only parent. I said, so why don't you speak to the other parents and come to an agreement in the class? And she actually did it. And so they all came to, bar 3 parents, all of them have agreed to stop letting their children play certain computer games. And not one of them would have been, they're all thinking the same thing. They all know it's not quite right. They all know that their children's behaviour gets affected by it because they're being desensitised. But they wasn't wanting to speak out. And so once she spoke out, now she's got a team on board, and now they're all enforcing the same rule of that certain computer game is banned, and the other ones, I think they came to an agreement of limited to only weekend or something like this. So all of a sudden you've got a tribe, and we're all going in the same direction. But if you by yourself feel like you're the only one, it's really hard sometimes to step out and say it. So that's just the normal stuff in our everyday life, let alone what's happening to these poor innocent children who are being sometimes even farmed into this, or sort of ushered away from their parents and put into a life of torture and trauma. The normal people can't actually think that this is actually real.
Yeah, and again, it's like for me, I wanted to understand it more than on just reading it and, you know, oh, this is happening, that's happening, this person's involved, they're implicated. When I started to connect with people who've been through it, speak to them and hear their story, or see images of, you know, what really happens, or hear the backstory of it, is beyond comprehension. It's beyond comprehension of us in our daily lives just wanting to go about and have a nice life. But this is the undercurrent, the underbelly, the dark underbelly of society that there needs to be awareness of it. And it's one that you don't want to force in anybody's face, but there needs to be an awareness of what goes on, because, like you say, it's prevalent in, you know, just on a care home level, and the UK is just terrible for sweeping stuff under the carpet, you know, and pretending it's not something that doesn't happen here. But just slowly the truth is coming out, and you're seeing it a little bit more on mainstream outlets, where there's been another raid, or this person's come out, that those people are being, or they've broken down another trafficking ring. It's like slowly coming out, and there's like a little drip feed of it as well.
There is definitely, I'm really impressed to see this, actually. Because I know a lot of spiritual teachers said it would happen like this. And for so long I felt like nothing's happening, you know, and I can't sit and wait for someone else to do the work. But now we really are seeing it every day. There's something else coming in mainstream media also. I noticed the Daily Mail here in the UK, like the Daily Mail has put quite a lot of things in. I'm interested actually to research the source of who's writing those things, because I've been shocked that even about the paedophilia and things like that.
Yeah, I've been surprised as well, because I always look on Daily Mail just to see, because I just need to get an idea of where the populist brain is, you know. Because that's the only mainstream thing I really look at, and maybe like Guardian as well, just to see, okay, what are people buying into? This is the story, that what are they being told in comparison to what's coming up? But you can see now there are more mentions of this coming out a little bit more, and, you know, sometimes still things are coming up more so, you know, that these are conspiracy. But in particular with you know, like most people are like, the thought of paedophilia, it's like, where that doesn't even compute. It's like, at what point does that become a good idea to you? But the thing is, it becomes a good idea because for many of them, are born into it. It's normal from young. And watching in particular one case where there's kids that are talking about the fact that this happens, and talking in a way that you're like, there is no way a child could make that shit up. There's just like absolutely no way, you know. So it's normalized to them, and and the way they're telling you is like they're telling you that they just went round the corner and they like was sitting talking to them, so matter of fact. That you're like, how could you talk about something so matter of fact? But you have to then disassociate, and it's all the kind of the way that trauma and mind control has been used on certain individuals. But then also all of us as well, we've been traumatized, we've been hypnotized, we've been mind controlled, like you say, with all the seasoning and the grooming that gets done at these girls at a young age, so that when they turn up at 12, then they decide that they're going to walk around and like they want to have lipsticks and bras and stuff like that. Like, wait, man, you know what I mean? There's plenty of time for all of that. And the thing is, like, it might be fun for you in your group of like 10, 12-year-old girls, and you're all having fun and wearing lipstick, and it's cool for you. But unfortunately, there's going to be some sicko that's looking at you
Yeah.
And that's where the danger is. It's not the kind of the fun that you're having with your friends. It's the kind of attention and energy and danger you'll put yourself in as a result of somebody else's warped psyche, basically.
Yeah.
You know, but as more of this comes out, and as more of, because we can't help, I you know, if the thought of children going through what they go through, and I'm not even saying anything of the things that I've found out, you wouldn't stand for it. You couldn't stand for it, you know.
No,
and even myself, when I really started to, I had to sit with it for a little while as well, and it affected me for a couple of days.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't sleep. I was because you know it's real. It gets you at your core, because you know that you're lucky you haven't experienced that, especially when you are deeply connected. Like I really am. I'm so intuitive, I'm so sensitive, and it felt like that's one of my children. It really, like, I could even cry now. Like it, I can't explain. There's not a word for it. It just it deeply hurt me.
Me too. And I've not even had children, but suddenly I just felt this like maternal lion protector kind of like, no fucking way can this happen, you know. And I'd walk down the streets and I'd just see people innocently in the park with their kids. Or I remember I was like in the supermarket and they had a little section of kids clothes, and there was just like a model of a baby, just like modeling a baby grow. And I'm like, my God, you know, I'm just like looking at that going, that's a cute baby, whereas others will look at it and see something completely different. It's just like, how
again the innocence is taken away.
And it's the innocence, it's that innocence, and it's that energy of purity and innocence that people drive on. And the things that are put in front of us as fiction and make-believe and vampire and all of that kind of stuff, there is a level of truth in that we probably don't even want to admit to, but we do have to at some point face up to. You may not need to immerse yourself totally in it, but we just need to know what's been going on so that it just doesn't happen again. No, and I think out of all of the things and all of the crazy conspiracies that people might want to call it, that is the one that I think will, maybe that's the part that's going to wake people up when it really hits us.
I think so. Because we can all resonate, like, you know, even just silly things. If you see a child fall over, you're like, oh gosh, you know, you want to make sure, you know, like this it's our nature. It's our nature to protect children, and you know, that's just a silly little thing. But I think anyone would do the same. They want to make sure they're okay. And so I do feel like it's a non-negotiable, like, once you know you're not going to agree with it, and you want to see the change and you want to see it stop, which again is why I feel like they will hold it back for as long as possible. So the fact it's coming out now for me is amazing, and I want to keep seeing more and more of it, because once you know it, you can't unknow it. And you can't, like you say, you can't unknow it, and you can't like shrug your shoulders to it, because in like pretending that it's not a thing, you are complicit in that, enabling,
you know. And you know, nobody wants to be accused of being part of any kind of child abuse, and just by turning your head you're actually part of it. You know, it's that cut and dried, I think. I know, big things as well. But let's ask some of the other questions, the her conversations questions as well. And the first one is, what is the best piece of advice that a woman has ever given to you?
I was thinking about this, and when I first had my daughter, I'd done a lot of personal development. I went to like Tony Robbins seminars and things like that, just to get my mindset into a place where I could, you know, like, you have a dream, you have a vision, but I had the procrastination and things holding it back. So went on to a lot of these seminars, which helped me so much. And one of the ladies who was sort of like helping out, just sort of like a crew sort of member, she said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And for me, that has stuck for ages. I still find it really hard to make big decisions. I sort of, yeah, I'm still sort of worrying about, you know, the two realities that could happen. And that, I come back to that. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Like, if you want to make a change, if you want to make a difference, if you want to improve, you have to like go into that space. So yeah, I think that's the one that sort of stayed with me and helps me. Yeah.
And it's so true though. I think we're seeing a change, we're feeling a change. I'm surprised and glad at how there's just this wave of people just going, it can't go on, it can't go on. There's still, you know, people that are, I think the reason that we want to, because we know what is potentially coming, and it's just easier to get these in, you know, they're uncomfortable truths, but it's easier to kind of get them bit by bit than just like have to like have it all smack in you, because it's gonna hit like a wave anyway. Some people won't make it. Some people absolutely won't make it. They haven't got the mental capacity for it, or they won't want to believe it. But truth is truth, whether you're buying it or not. The truth is the truth. So yeah, I think it's like, for me, it's with people that I just want to let know certain things. It's not because I want them to turn around and go, Carol, you're right. It's not about me being right. This is not me just kind of letting you know something that's happening to all of us. I want you to be aware of it. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm like, this seems to be my purpose right now, and I can't move left or right for it. It's like, okay, what am I doing today to make sure that I'm doing this? How can I do something? What can I learn? I feel so more driven to do this at this particular point in time, and it's not going to be necessary forever, but right now this is what needs to be done. But it's like watching someone like run into a wall, you know, and you're just like, I need to just like soften the blow for you. Or it's, you know, if you had a partner and your partner was cheating on you, would you want to find out, or would you want someone to tell you if they knew beforehand? It's that kind of level of, do you want to live in the lie a little bit longer, or do you want to find out the truth sooner so you can start to heal from it? And that's a good way of putting it, because we've all been there. On whatever side of it, we've all been there. Like, do what, you know, even if you find out, do you tell that person? The answer is yes, you do. You have to, right? And that's the thing. And I think
it's horrible.
You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person, because they probably don't want to believe you. But then, you know, or you live in the lie, or you find out the truth. This is what we do. So anyway, what's the what woman would you say represents higher energetic resonance to you?
I think, like I mentioned, Guru Jagat, I think she's not in every way, definitely not in every way, but I really love her fierceness and her ability to offer space for other people. So something that I really love, a quality that I love in women, is to celebrate other women and to give them space to be heard and not be in competition with them. I think she does this very well. I love this. A couple of people in the UK, there's a lady called Magenta Pixie and another lady called Jen McCarthy. And again, not 100% on everything, but I'm really enjoying their ability to just keep going and you know, some days they're like upset or whatever, but I'm watching that vulnerable, constant share, which I really aspire to. I watch myself pull back, go forward, pull back, and that's something I really want to work on, just being able just to keep sharing and keep using my voice. So those two women in the UK right now for me are like really doing it for me. Like, I'm really inspired by them.
I watch them a lot. You know them? Not personally, but I watch Magenta and Jen's content, and you know, I think that both of them have got like a really, because it just feels, I think, in the UK that there aren't that many voices. I don't know what you think.
For sure.
Like that. And you know, not that I follow that many in America so much now, but that it always felt that where are the UK sisters at?
It feels like we're behind. Yeah, we're too polite. The British are too polite.
Too polite in every way, too suppressed in every way.
Yeah.
And it's time to kind of shift that a little bit. And
yeah, for sure. That's really, it's what I'm working on. It really is. Yeah.
So yeah, both of them, I like the way that they're looking at things. I know that they're taking blows left and right as well.
Yes,
there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that I don't know certain people directly, but then it's like there's even warring going on kind of like across, you know, women to women, where I'm just like, we need to be facing forward now.
That's what I was saying, like celebrating your sisters and not being in competition with them, recognizing we've all got our own voice, and there is a lot of people that need healing right now. We don't need to be fighting over this. We need to be like really celebratory of all women sharing their truth and sharing their voice. That's why it's inspiring when other women do it and really do it, not just do it because they're getting something back from it, like they just really do it.
I think it's important, and also then it kind of like, then you undo that programming of like that other woman's your competition. That's an absolute lie, and that's just a program that we kind of bought into, of like, you know, whatever you think that other woman has over you or is better than you, or you're less than, or this kind of like pitting against each other. So tired, and it's so disempowering as well, because anyone who is still playing that game is so insecure and so frightened and filled with anxiety. It makes no sense, because then you're judging your moves based on the moves that you think this other person is making, and they're just getting on with their life normally. So as soon as that one can come down and collapse, so facing forward within the community as well, that because there are going to be more people that need to be healed than people that are available as healers. I really feel there's going to be, we're going to be needed more than we could actually really imagine.
Definitely.
And we just need to be stronger and be ready for that when it comes. It's you know, but it's good, because on the other side it's gooder, if that's a word. It's gooder. Oh god. Okay, what's your favorite self-care ritual practice?
Right now I've been going to the farmers market. Throughout this whole lockdown, my farmers market was open.
Oh good.
So
okay.
It is, I know, right? And we kind of arranged for our friends to happen to be buying their veg at the same time as us as well, so it became this kind of real cool space to be. So mine is getting my fresh farmers organic veg, and I make this massive salad. It's so delicious and so fresh, and I consciously just, you know, no phone while I'm eating, and I just eat this food and I feel so nourished. So that's like one of my favorite things to do right now. really slowly eat my fresh salad. It feels like so much luxury. And another thing I've been doing is like really looking after my skin. So since I moved, I've been back in the UK living here about 2.5 years, and since then I've had like massive problems with my skin and my hair. And I feel like it's like the water, the pollution, all of that. You know, I was traveling before, so you just have like that sea air and, you know, the luxuries of living abroad. And so I've been sort of spending a bit more money and like really like taking care of my skin and my hair. And although that's superficial, it makes me feel really good about myself. So that's sort of my other thing. Yeah, like inside and out.
It's necessary. No, I had, you know, that one pair of jogging bottoms that just got blitzed through quarantine. I had to put them in the bin the other day.
Yes, burn them.
Just had to look at them going like, I know we're not completely out there, but we can do better than this, man. So like certain items that were like, no, just let go and move forward and do better for yourself. So I had to have a moment of like, we don't have to rough it so roughly, you know. So I've still not hit the hairdressers, but you know, I'm not, I don't know,
go with it. It looks cool.
Well, I don't comb it so much, so it's turning into like the curls are coming through, you know. So the days that I do, I'm like, do I have to do this? So yeah, anything that involves me not having to comb my hair is good. So benefit. Okay, so what's coming up next for you? Have you got like new programs or
Yeah, so I'm
writing?
actually just debating about whether to take a month off the social media. I'm not sure whether because I've been teaching classes online. So I'm going to definitely scale back for the month of August. I'm going to stay in Spain with a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. So I'm definitely scaling back and giving myself some time to sort of come through. I'm going to go and see an amazing teacher. She actually teaches theatre, but she's a really spiritual lady, and she teaches you to act from a space of, rather than adding the character on top of you, from going inside and feeling those emotions and then bringing them out, but not to act as in like to basically find those emotions from within and then show up like it in real life. She's amazing. Her name's Jessica Walker. So she teaches all in Spanish, which I've been learning Spanish. So that's like, so this is my month of August to kind of really go in and actually do some work on myself again, on a very deep level. And then in September, I am going to teach a course, and I think I'm going to base it on the chakras. And the reason why I felt like that is the most accessible way to understand your energy points in the body. And I feel like anyone, it's like, color coded like the rainbow. It's so simple, and yet I feel like that is something we all need to be taught. When we're talking about our physical body, we also need to be talking about our energetic body in schools, like from a young point. Like, I feel this in my heart. I feel this in my solar plexus. My throat's tight. I need to work on my throat chakra. This for me is like a basic energy map that everybody needs to learn from a very young age. And so I'm designing the course, and I have a book I don't know if the book's going to be ready the first time round when I'm teaching this course. It might be the second time because it takes a lot more work. But this is what I feel like I'm calling to give something to people that they're going to be able to use and then take back out into the world. Otherwise, I feel like the spirituality is getting too... it's not accessible enough. So I really want something accessible. So yeah, that's kind of all bubbling away right now, and I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look. Like, I'm super intuitive with my work, and I tend to be a bit last minute, like, oh, we're going to do a course this week, so this is the first time I'm actually letting it brew for a little bit longer, and I want it to be a more sort of like I say, going back to basics for people. I'm really excited about it, actually. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds amazing, of course. And it will be, it's I think it's things that all people need, and it'll just be interesting to see how when more people wake up, what level of spirituality they go into, because I'm seeing people who I never thought I would never have called spiritual, who have woken up and then want a little bit of something. They might not want to go like kind of like, like neck up and further like I did or anything like that.
2-hour chanting a mantra. What I'm feeling and what I'm receiving from my students is the more advanced practices that I personally do aren't actually resonating with them. It's too much because it's something else to think about, and their brains are full of information, too much information. So that's why I feel like actually the real super gentle things can be just as profound, because actually they need to create the space and stillness and silence within the mind. And so I feel like that gives them more, because let's just be real about it. When you're awakening and when you're actually, it's not like just learning some information is not actually awakening. Your body's still going to be vibrating on those lower 3D realms. So you actually have to get your energy flowing to vibrate at a higher level, to process the information and to take it out into your daily life. Otherwise, again, there's this duality of you're living this life and you know all this information, and it's actually not coming together. So that, I guess, is what I'm really feeling the job is to do, is to bring those together so that our spiritual life, our spiritual practice are part of our everyday life. That's how we're living. It's not something we do. We don't go to a spiritual retreat and then come back to normal. Those days are gone. It needs to be a full embodied spiritual being having this human experience. Back to that old school quote, but it's true. That's what needs to be happening now for me, I feel, anyway.
No, I agree with you. And it'll be, like, imagine everyone's just got their little bit of thing, even as simple as just sitting in your favorite chair in the garden, just like listening to the birds, man. That's good enough. Doesn't have to be like a major, like, you don't
need to be chanting Gurmukhi. It doesn't have to be like that.
It can be simple, and simple is beautiful. Great. So where can everybody find you online when you are
my
there?
Website, victoriaamore.com, Instagram, Facebook, I think that's Victoria Amore, Victoria Kundalini. That's where I'm hanging out, and I'm going to try to post more. I'm trying to use my voice in the most authentic way, and not looking at what the grid looks like. So that's my process. That's my process right now, actually, just to actually be heard and seen more. I definitely feel my own personal journey is, I'm not fully on the online platforms, I'm not fully showing all of me. So we'll see what that looks like. Give me a couple of months and we'll see how that manifests.
I think sometimes it doesn't have to be online. Like, I think we beat ourselves up because we've got this Instagram and we've got this thing and we've got like some project or business that we're trying to bring forward, that we need to be on it and pushing it all the time. But sometimes the doing more is if people know that you're kind of delving into certain aspects of things and have a knowledge on certain areas, those like private WhatsApp messages that you have, when someone's asking you that is just as relevant, because you don't know what that person will then do with that information. It's like passing a light out. They'll ask you something or send you a link, and then it will be like, what do you think about that? And then we're all doing it in our own way. We're all kind of scattered around separately, but together. But then our little sphere of influence are the people that come to us for information. So you're saying your sister comes to you, but then what she's doing is not only affecting her but affecting her children, and who knows who she's speaking to. So you know what I mean, it's kind of spreading out that way, because you don't know who's going to take that bit of information, how many people they're going to tell, and where that goes. And it's just this web of like interconnectivity that is just going to blow up really, really soon. It's happening already. I've seen such a change on the way that people are speaking online, speaking out more. And also what's telling is where people used to go to certain celebrity posts on any kind of social media, folks ain't sleeping anymore.
They're
just not getting it.
They're not getting the answers there.
No,
they're not being fulfilled. And I think the lockdown experience is recognizing how to nourish ourselves in all those different ways. And that stuff is not nourishing us. If anything, it's just bringing back that competitive, that I'm not good enough. It's bringing actually all of those things up. And whereas the people who are just living more in their truth, maybe they don't have such a big platform, they're just being real. That's so nourishing and so relatable.
I thought something came to my mind there. I've got to remember it because it was profound and beautiful and clever. It was, you know what it was? It was a couple of things. One, I remember, because I went from mass unfollow of like, favorite singers, these kind of people, and like all the blue checks have just literally been unfollowed by me. And I remember feeling like a few days later, just feeling like, oh my God, I actually feel better. And it wasn't that any of these people were putting out any kind of like sinister message or really kind of opening up to who and what they were up to. It was like, even in their most benign of posts, there was a message and there was an energy that was coming there. But the thing that I thought of was, we were supposed to flatten the curve. and what we've done is just flatten the pyramid of, you know what I mean? It's like we had all these people that we looked up to, and then everyone was locked in their houses. And granted, some of us were, you know, just in a small, humble place that had all the things that we needed. And then we had people in Calabasas with, like, you know, infinity pools complaining about their shit.
Or trying to say, well, we're all in the same boat. No, we're not.
No, we're not. So that in itself, just when that kind of flattened that curve, it was just like, hang on, why am I listening to this person? Why you know, they're sitting there all sorry and with no makeup, and I should feel bad. It's like we're all not wearing makeup today, we're all not doing our hair, but you know, like, and I think as well where the affront came was when there were all these fundraisers. You know, and you had these multi-millionaire figures that were like, give your money, and they'd be like, sis, I just lost my job. For sure. And it doesn't resonate anymore, because you're like, what? Just give yours. Give yours. Like, you want like that, you know, that sort of. And I come back to actually about the NHS with the nurses and stuff. Like, we all know, like, someone's auntie, someone's mum who's a nurse who works so hard, you know, their little bit of money, they buy stuff for their grandkids or their, you know, nephews, whatever. And we know those people so well. We all know one of those kind of characters. They're just so sweet, you know. And then you know, we're clapping for them. It's like, no, give them some more money. And then, like, you know, those people trying to say, oh, give us money. No. We're not going to do it. No. You know. So, it's definitely, this in itself, it just showed that sort of, It's we've flattened the curve for sure. We'll just get this, just level it out. Amazing. It's been so much fun. It's been super good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely love what you're doing. Just need more of these conversations, and more action being taken into our lives, so that this stuff, you know, the awakening happens, and this new sort of reality happens for us, and the old one crumbles.
Thank you so much to Victoria for being a guest on this week's episode, and thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com, and on Facebook under the same name, and I'm on Twitter and on Instagram under Kazmic, that's CAZMICK. So until the next week, enjoy, take care, speak soon, bye.